All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Golden Ticket Sports Center. Host your next business staff event at Golden Ticket Sports Center here in Moose Jaw. Experience a unique and dynamic environment, perfect for team building, meetings, and corporate fun. Visit GoldenTicketSportsCenter.com to book your event today. I smile, Jim, the second I see you come on. Where's your head today? What are you thinking? What do you want to talk about on a Football Friday?
Well, obviously, you guys have been talking a lot about Luke Wilson, and I think it's a really interesting thing. And everybody has kind of missed the point here. Luke Wilson he knows football very well, but he's the first guy I can think of that's been hired that has zero connection with the CFL, hasn't played at even a college level because he left his high school, St. Thomas in LaSalle, went to Rice in 2008. So once he's down there, he's just not. He's not around it. So he sees the game through just like an American football fan would, and the Rouge. You're not going to appreciate the Rouge if you haven't lived it. David Sanchez played in the NFL, but he came back and he understands what covering a receiver downhill is like. Luke doesn't have that knowledge. So I appreciate the knowledge he has and the perspective he gives, but he has zero ties up here. For example, the other day he ripped into the Toronto coaching staff for how they were picking up a blitz, the offensive coordinator and Ryan Dinwiddie, in terms of them type of protection. Well, I can tell you this: if Russell Wilson and the New York Giants go into Las Vegas and play Pete Carroll and the Las Vegas Raiders, and they have 29 yards and penalties each, and throw interceptions, he is not going to say that game is hot garbage, because Russell Wilson's a good friend of his. Pete Carroll, he's bled with. He hasn't bled with anybody in this league. And again, I understand where he's coming from. I find him refreshing. I've never met him. I think he was brought in as an NFL guy, and he's so good with Jay Onrait on that they felt like he could bring something. And I think he does bring something. But you have to understand what it is. It's the view of anybody else who hasn't. I mean, you can't appreciate the Rouge until you've lived until you've watched or played in a game where a team is kicking it out, kicking it back, kicking it out, and it's like, wow, that is really special. And I came from the U.S., had never seen this game, and as I learned the rules, I became to get an appreciation for it. And I just think there's a lot of things with the CFL he doesn't have an appreciation for, and he can't. He can't. It would be like me going down, even though I have a lot of friends coaching in the NFL and that type of thing. My relationships down there are not like they are up here. So while I'm gonna try to say things the way they are, and I'm gonna try to call out, when things are not right. I still am going to have a sensitivity to why that's happening. Why is it happening that they're having trouble on the 5-yard line? Picking up different stunts and things, and instead of just saying, "Wow, they can't pick up this thing," that's easy. That's what a football fan would say. An analyst would say, down here, a defense is going to give you a lot more 5-man rush. You're going to lock up the line, and so it makes things a little more complicated for the protection. Blah blah blah, something along those lines. And so I understand it. I appreciate Luke Wilson. I think what he's doing is interesting. It's good. I enjoy the things he says because he does have a lot of football knowledge. I drafted him. I've never met him, but I drafted him in 2012 with the Argonauts in the 5th round. But again, never thought he was going to play so long, and thought we had a chance to get him, in a couple of years. But God bless him. He played 6 or 7 years in the NFL and made a career there. But I think there's just nobody has talked about the fact he has zero ties up here. His understanding of the game is going to be different than most.
Yeah, well, it's as well, if we didn't know already, CFL diehards are a wee little bit defensive when it comes to anything critical of their game. So that's kind of where he's stepped in it right now. To some actual football talk, there's a million things and not enough time here, frankly. So we'll get to as much as we can. A viewer, Cole, wrote in and said, could Edmonton go with a quarterback tandem, right? Cody and Trey. And I was sort of like, how does that even look? And in any time in Sask, when we had two quarterbacks, they didn't want to share time. I think they're doing it right in Edmonton, but what do you see?
Well, I do. I agree. I think they're doing it right, the way they have to do it. Trey Ford's either going to become a quarterback or he's not. And he's been terrible for three quarters and then plays great in the fourth quarter. Well, this game, they're 23-23 going in to the fourth quarter, and who is it that runs 12 yards for a touchdown? Zach Caleros for the third time in 10 years. Great quarterbacks find ways to win games in the fourth quarter. He was not able to take that team down and get them close to winning that game. Again, they might have scored late, but he's got to get to that point, and they have to find out, is he the guy that can do that? He hasn't proved it yet. Here's a great poll question for you. So you have Davis Alexander in Montreal, who is basically it says he's in his third year. He had a couple years of learning. Now he's named the starter. And Trey Ford, the same thing in Edmonton. If you're starting a team and you have to, you're going to pick one of those two, who are you going to take?
That is a very good question.
Very good question.
What would be your answer?
I would take Davis Alexander personally. Now, people who love the athleticism of Trey Ford, that's great. I just think there's much more to quarterback than that. So I would take Davis Alexander. I think he's going to be a superstar in this league. I really do. I think he's that good.
He's on the way to having the greatest start in CFL history for one more win, and he is. So, in retrospect, it would be Davis Alexander for me as well. Janice writes in, she's a Stampeders fan. She says, I'm wondering Jim's thoughts on the kicking game for the Stamps with the challenges Rennie is having and injuries to the long snapper.
Rennie's going to be fine. He just is. Aaron Crawford is one of the best long snappers in the league. When that guy gets hurt, they're like long snappers. You never know about them until they do something wrong. It's probably the worst job in all of pro sports is being a long snapper, because when you miss it or you make a bad one, everybody in the world knows. Well, when he gets hurt, everybody in the world knows because the next guy can't do what he does. So that's a huge problem for him. They will replace him with somebody that at least get him through, because Aaron's, I think, on the sixth game now. So I think his injury is severe. Rennie Paredes is going to be fine. You go through changes in long snappers, that's hard. I think he's got a new holder. Cody Grace was his holder for the last 3 years. That changes. It kind of like Castillo last year. Remember Castillo went through a tough time? These guys Paredes is one of the greatest kickers that's ever kicked in this league, and I don't care what anybody says. I've seen that guy win too many games, make too many big field goals. You have nothing to worry about in your kicking game there. You have some other issues, but you don't have to worry about Rennie Paredes.
I'm a little surprised she's asking about that for that reason. Here in Sask, which is where I am for the summer, they're all over Brett Lather, and I don't want to ask you about that, but I do want to ask you about the Riders and Lions Saturday. No Trevor Harris. We know that. Jake Mayer starts for Saskatchewan, his first for the Riders, and Nathan Rourke a game-time decision. How does this affect the game?
Well, obviously, if Nathan Rourke plays, I think Darren talked about it. If Nathan Rourke plays, it gives him a big advantage. But that injury he has is a problem. That's a problematic injury. It's kind of like it's a rib. So every time he throws, it's going to be painful. And one hit, and it's good. You can pad it up, but I think it's going to be difficult for him because he still was all week just a partial participant in practice. So I don't think he's back. I think it's going to be either Mazzoli or Chase Bryce. I'm anxious to watch Mayer. I think Mayer, again, needed a change of venue. He's played in Mark Mueller's offense. Mark wanted him as the backup. And again, he was one of the guys I thought, well, that is a great pickup as a backup, because he's a guy who will come in. It's a totally different ball game than being named the quarterback in Calgary and having the whole weight of the organization on your shoulders. Now he goes in and he's a back. And if he goes out and wins tonight, those people in Saskatchewan are going to love that kid. And he's going to, the whole history in Calgary is gone. So I still like Saskatchewan if Rourke doesn't play. And even if he plays, I'm not sure he's going to be healthy enough. And the BC Lions haven't shown me that there's any physicalness to them at all. Where the Saskatchewan Roughriders, they are one of the more physical, probably the most physical team in them in Winnipeg in the West. And that's where Corey Mace has to get that team. They got to become more physical than Winnipeg because that's why they've gone to 5 straight Grey Cups. And when you look at physicality, I take Saskatchewan over BC 100 out of 100 times right now. BC has done nothing to show me that they're closer to being physical enough to be able to hang with those teams.
You and I both spent a lot of time in Alberta. I went to college there. You were with the Stamps for years. You know there's great CFL fans in Alberta. And all week, they've been writing in about Adam Bighill signing with the Stamps. I don't see it as that big of a deal, but they would like me to ask you your thoughts on Adam Bighill going to Calgary.
Well, they not only signed Adam Bighill, but the starting middle linebacker from Hamilton got cut this week. Wilson, I can't even think of his first name, but he got cut and they signed him also. So, they obviously have a problem. When Fraser Sopik retired before the season, I talked about it on this show. That was a huge guy getting basically retiring because of injury. And they haven't been able to fix the problem since. So, again, will Adam Bighill give him something? Absolutely, he will. How long he'll be able to play? That's a question. But he'll bring them some leadership, and again, he'll make some plays for them. Kyle Wilson, that's who it is. Kyle Wilson was a linebacker in Hamilton. He's going there also. So they obviously view linebacker as a huge issue for them. So again, they're struggling big time. They have a bye this week. So I think they got to get it squared away. I got to tell you, Rod, I was there back in 2000 in Calgary in 2003 when the fans basically turned their back on Michael Federick, and you look up in the stands and see 3,000 people, and it broke your heart. That's what I felt the other day. It looked like on television like they had 2,500 or 3,000. I know they announced a lot more. It sure didn't look like it. And the one thing I know about Calgary people, having lived there for 8 years, 9 years, weather does not stop them. I don't care if it's raining sideways or what it is. When you live in Calgary, you just put your stuff on and you go. And weather never is a factor there for doing stuff. So that was really scary to me to watch that because it's kind of a throwback to the days when I was there, when Federick was there. And that's scary.
You weren't with the Stamps in 2010, were you? You were gone by then, weren't you?
No, I left in 2010 and went to Toronto. I was there from Ferzani came and asked me if I'd be the GM in 2005. So I was the GM from then, really till I left in 2009. But when Huff came, he wanted the title, so gave him that title of GM.
Right. Well, I just asked because West Final 2010, Rough Riders at Stampeders -27 in Calgary and stadium full. Right. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
that's why people say it was bad weather. I don't buy it in Calgary because I know those people. Those people are. You don't ever bring the weather up.
As do I, but what's going on there? Not yours or my concern, other than if you love the CFL, it's everybody's concern. But Colin in Ottawa writes that he says, does Jim agree with me that athleticism and running in a quarterback matters much less in the 3-down game as compared to American rules football?
That's an interesting. Because of the size of the field, running and athleticism in a quarterback is always a good thing. And on the big field, it can create a problem. But the bigger number one thing in the CFL, and you look at the great quarterbacks that have been up here, accuracy and timing, because the holes are bigger than they are in the NFL. In the NFL, because of the size of the field and the size of the players, the holes that they have to throw the ball in are much smaller. Up here, they're much bigger. So if you have good timing, there's big holes in there that you can find people. Dave Dickinson was one of the great quarterbacks ever because he could do that. Now, when you throw in an ability to run a little bit, you look at Zach. Zach's run 3 touchdowns in 10 years, they said. But he moves well enough to keep a defense honest. But he's so accurate with the football. Those deep balls he threw they were beyond. You know, you don't see that very often, and again, that's the beauty of our game, that you don't see a lot of those kind of things happening in the NFL game. It's just that they're different games. And that's
Totally.
what Luke needs to understand. This is 3-down football, not 4-down football.
That's absolutely, yeah, it's the difference. It's what a lot of us love about it, is the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's trying to say, this isn't perfect. Nobody ever said it was. But let me ask you this, because you've coached so long and followed this game in Canada so long. Who's the best quarterback that's ever played in it? Because I will say Flutie.
Doug Flutie, and not even close.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Not even
I
close.
agree. Okay.
Every single player on the, and I got a chance to coach him at my second year up here, so I got a lesson in how to win up here from Doug Flutie. That guy, he made the right guard better. He would tell me, I was coaching the offensive line, he would say, Jim, don't even worry about that linebacker. We're not even going to put him in the count, because if he makes the tackle, we got a big problem. I'll make him miss. And then if we had a mismatch with a lineman, say our right guard was mismatched because they had a really good defensive, he goes, that guy won't make any tackles. I'll make sure of that. And you know, guys would go through seasons and give up no sacks and think it was them. You know, it's like it's kind of like when you look at defensive linemen with Flo Remalade. You know, those guys that are all playing in Edmonton now, that was all Flo Remalade guys playing with him, getting sacks and things Flo does for a defensive line what Flutie did for an offense. So to me, it's not even close. I had Anthony and Ricky Ray and great players, but not Doug Flutie.
Hey, and Damon's got what he does. Warren Moon has the Grey Cups. I mean, it's just a fantastic conversation to have. You know what I mean? And I think Flutie is that answer. The thing about Flutie, I never met him, and I could have. I just was too nervous to introduce myself. But he just seems like such a great guy, because if I tweet something interesting or I put something on Facebook, he responds. I'm like, you're Doug Flutie. Why are you writing me on social media? He's just a normal guy, is the sense.
I'll tell you, what he is the most competitive dude you've ever seen. He bought a ping pong table for the locker room. And I said, Doug, what a great thing to do, you know, put a ping pong table in. And he goes, it's not for them. It's so I can shut their asses up, because they keep saying they can beat me in ping pong, and I need to show them who the best. He's just a competitive dude. He came out, we're running short shuttles. 4.0 is a great short shuttle time. He says, what's the best time so far? And I said, 4.05. And he goes out and rips off a 3.75. I mean, he's just ridiculous, the kind of athlete and the competitiveness. He just isn't going to lose. That was his whole thing. He was not going to lose, and he was spectacular. I can't even put it in words.
Well, see, in Sask, we had a ping pong table, but somebody got body slammed on it, and that was the end of that. right in the locker room. His initials might have been Arkel Trueluck. You probably remember Arkel. I think you.
Oh yeah, no
would have
doubt.
coached against him. Anyways, John Ohm writes in from Winnipeg. He says, Flutie is the GOAT of the CFL. Our VP of Scouting, Craig Smith, writes it. He says, Caleros threw on timing so well last night. Tons of comments. I'll read them next. Thank you, Jim. Have a good weekend.
All right, Rod. See you next week.
Always fun with the CFL on TSN's Jim Barker. We'll be back with a sports update and viewer takeover the rest of the way here on Game Plus and streaming.